Roll call. Townsend. McKiernan.
Here.
Mugia. Maddox. Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Here.
Walker.
Here. We'll now, if you will, stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance this evening. The invocation is being given by Reverend Dennis Wistrom of Sunset Hills Christian Church. Please stand and remain standing through the pledge of allegiance.
Almighty God, we come before you tonight bringing each of our representatives in our city here to you. We pray that you would give them the wisdom that they need to make the decisions that are so important in all of our lives. We also want to thank you for each one of them and the contribution they make to our city. We love Kansas City. We love those who are taking care of business, and we pray that in the future the decisions that are made tonight might show that they've used wisdom, and we appreciate all their efforts and their consideration. We pray this in the blessed name of Jesus. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reverend Wisdom, thank you very much for being here tonight. We certainly appreciate you coming out on this very cold night. Tonight we have two distinct parts to this meeting. The planning and zoning part of the meeting will be handled first, to be followed by the regular commission agenda. Before we begin the planning and zoning portion of the meeting, I'll ask the clerk if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
There are no revisions.
Okay, would you then issue your statement?
We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor Mark Holland is unable to be here, Commissioner Hal Walker at Large District 1 and Mayor Pro Tem tonight, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Ann Mugia, District 3, Commissioner Terrence Maddox, District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has three options. Number 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with the statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the Mayor Pro Tem will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We will remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 5 minutes to state your views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. The Mayor Pro Tem and Commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any items on the Planning and Zoning agenda. I will ask if any members of the Commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
All right. Thank you. All right, starting with the consent agenda for planning and zoning, does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on this planning and zoning consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the planning and zoning consent agenda will be voted on with one vote to follow the recommendations of the Planning Commission.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, has the Commission disclosed any contacts for proponents or opponents on the consent agenda items?
I have no lights. I have a light now. Commissioner Barclay.
I've had contact with an opponent of A2 number 3063.
3063. All right. Are there any other disclosures?
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Change of zone application item number 130501A Franco. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to C1 Limited Business District for a barber shop at 6015 State Avenue. Recommended for approval to CP1 Planned Limited District Business. Item 2, 3063 Tillier Swamp. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to AG Agricultural District at 2706 South 65th Street. Recommended for approval. Special use permits item PR 213, 36 Reggie King, preliminary and final plan review for a storage garage for vehicles in conjunction with the commercial center. Recommended for approval. Item 2, PR 2013-40, Ryan M. with BHC Roads, preliminary and final plan review for a barber shop at 6015 State Avenue. Recommended for approval. D, miscellaneous planning and zoning, an ordinance vacating an alley at 82 and 88 North James Street. Those are all items on the consent agenda.
All right. Now that the clerk has read all of the items, once again, if anyone wishes to be heard on a particular item or have it set aside, now would be your time to speak. If not, one vote will be taken following the Planning Commission's recommendation. Are there any items that any member of the commission or any of you, the public in attendance, wish to set aside? Okay, none appearing. A motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of all items on the Planning and Zoning consent agenda as recommended. Madam Clerk, would you read the roll call, please?
Roll call. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia. Maddox.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion passed.
Okay. Now that will conclude the planning and zoning portion of tonight's agenda. We'll now proceed to the regular agenda. There are no items on the mayor's agenda, so we have the non-planning consent agenda. Again, any member of the public, any commissioner, if you wish to set aside an item on the consent agenda, you need to let us know. Otherwise, all items on the consent agenda will be voted on in their entirety.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve items 1 through 7 on the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Roll call Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Mugia, Maddox,
Aye.
Kane, Markley,
Aye.
Walters, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion passed.
We'll now proceed to the public hearing agenda. Consider a pilot for the PQ Corporation, followed by 3 actions that will be needed to be taken by the commission, I assume separately.
Yes.
All right, I guess we'll open start it with Mr. Brakovich's presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. George Brakovich with Economic Development. Sorry, I'm trying to look at this real quick to see where it's a slightly different version from mine. Slideshow from beginning. Thanks, Janet. It's a great presentation, though. There we go. Thank you, Janet.
Yeah.
These new computers, oh boy. Again, we're here tonight to consider a tax abatement for PQ Corporation. For some of you commissioners that have been around for a while, it should be a very familiar company. We've been working with them since roughly 2010 to come up with an incentive package that would cover a series of expansions they plan to do on site. And so tonight I could say it's about the culmination of about 2 years worth of effort to get here. So if not 3 full years. Again, what are we here for tonight? There's a few items. Number 1 is conduct a public hearing to consider a tax abatement. If you recall, back in September of this year, this commission considered a resolution of intent to issue $219 million in IRBs. So what we're coming back tonight then is with a master resolution of intent, still considering the $219 million, but actually incorporating a tax abatement structure. And then if that master resolution of intent gets adopted, there's 2 ordinances for you to consider to start a series of tranches with the bonds to get that fully funded. So the site itself on the north, or the top of the picture represents north, and you see I-70. The south, the bottom of the picture is south and Kansas Avenue with 18th Street Expressway running through. The star represents we'll call it the main parcel of the company at about 1700 Kansas Avenue. A close-up of the site will show, again, this is the larger piece is 1700 Kansas Avenue. The company has also acquired 3 additional parcels, so when we're considering a tax abatement and we look at establishing a base value in taxes, we're looking at all 4 of these sites. And within these 4 sites, these 4 planned expansions will occur. So who is PQ? It stands for Pennsylvania Quartz. Actually, and Tony Larson is here with the company tonight, and I'm certainly no chemist, and he could probably tell us a lot more about what the company does. But what I was always impressed with is that they've had a presence in Kansas City, Kansas since 1915. So I don't know how many companies we have that we're a couple of years away from hitting a century mark of them being a community partner. They are a manufacturer of silicate and zeolite technology, and I'm sure all of you are very familiar with that, and so we'll gloss over it. A little bit of a discrepancy between what was entered in the RFA and really what exists. Currently, the company employs 95, and we're expected to grow that over the course of those 4 expansions by 51 new positions. The picture below kind of gives you an idea of what the company is. When you drive along 18th Street Expressway, you see a lot of these white shell buildings. There's a lot of piping, a lot of tubing that goes along with that, and keep that in mind as we talk about the abatement structure here on this next slide. So again, standard abatement, 45% based on the level of investment here. They qualify for a 10-year term. Again, level of capital investment increases the 45% standard abatement by 15%. It's located in a target area of ours, that's another 10%. And then they've agreed to local minority and women business enterprise participation goals for their project. So that gets you to a total of 75% over 10 years. Now, the last few projects we've had with IRBs, we've talked about setting a pilot for 10 years. This is a little bit different because it's hard to project the value based on, all that tubing and what the buildings look like. And so this is kind of going back to the way we used to do it, and where the consideration is for a 75% tax abatement. Again, same concept though in the base taxes. We'll establish the base taxes based on the 4 parcels that are involved. As the appraiser comes in and they complete their projects, they'll determine the new value, and then the abatement would be applied only to the new value. So again, ending slide is just again reminding us what we're here for tonight. Again, Tony Larson with PQ is here, and he's available to answer any questions should you folks have some for him. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brakovich. I'll open the public hearing. I think we'll take the proponents. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this project, if you would please come to the podium, state your name and address. You can speak for 5 minutes. Anyone wish to speak in favor? All right, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this proposal? All right, none appearing. We'll close the public.
Move for approval.
Yes, we need to adopt a resolution of intent to establish the abatement first, and then each ordinance separately. So I'll take your motion as for the first resolution.
Yes.
All right.
My second is for that.
All right. If the clerk would please call the roll.
Roll call Townsend,
Aye.
Kiernan,
Aye.
Mugia. Maddox,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0, that motion passed.
We need now a motion to approve an ordinance to issue $65,085,000 in IRBs Series 213A.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and second. Please read the roll.
Roll call Townsend,
Aye.
Kiernan,
Aye.
Mugia,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0, that motion passed.
All right, the final item is the ordinance to issue $36,085,000 in IRBs Series 2013B.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and second. Please call the roll.
Roll call Townsend,
Aye.
Kiernan,
Aye.
Mugia, Maddox,
Aye.
Kane, Markley,
Aye.
Walters, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0, that motion passed.
All right, that concludes the public hearing items. We have, the administrator has an announcement of a special meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commission received on Monday evening in your agenda package this pink sheet, and it was a public announcements, notice of special meeting. For the record, I'll just call it, you're hereby notified that a special session has been called to be held on Thursday, December 12th at 5 p.m. here in these chambers, Commission Chambers and Municipal Office Building, for a joint meeting between the Unified Government Board of Commissioners and the Board of Public Utilities. Purpose of the meeting will be discussion of the proposed $250 million capital improvement program that BPU is considering as a part of their initiatives to deal with air quality control required by EPA.
Commissioner Kane?
Dennis, is that night a presentation and a vote, or just a presentation?
Presentation only. This item, as I understand it, Commissioner, is for presentation. If the commission wants to take action, that would be up to the commission. But I know the board staff has been in preparation for the presentation. It will include, as requested, experts from the outside to discuss the issue of natural gas versus coal burning operations for future.
All right, Commissioner Townsend?
On the December 12th meeting, will the public be able to offer comment or ask questions?
My understanding, ma'am, is that this is a discussion and a joint meeting between the BPU and the Board of Commissioners and is not a public hearing or public discussion, ma'am. It will be, however, Mayor Holland had specifically requested that it be held in this room, so it will be televised beginning at 5 p.m. next Thursday evening.
I would think at some point when there would be a vote to issue the debt, that will be an item on an agenda in which the public can then comment. This is designed, I believe, to answer the questions of the commission and provide the information to us for consideration. There will be an opportunity at some future date for the public to speak in favor or against the project.
We have one item this evening, Mayor Pro Tem, under the Administrator's agenda. Would you like to proceed forward?
Yes.
At this time, Commission, I would like to call forward Mike Tobin, our Deputy Director of Public Works, and his team. As has been practiced recently, we've asked various departments to come forward and make presentations regarding operational issues in the unified government. Tonight, it seems timely that the presentation that's being made is regarding snow removal. So, Mr. Tobin, if you'd like to introduce others a part of your presentation, the floor is yours.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Administrator, staff. First of all, I'd like to introduce the person who actually directs the snow operations, and that's Tommy Svetkovic, who is our Street Department Division Manager. He's been with the city for 35 years. 31 years, I'm sorry. In fact, he was recognized for 30 years of service today. Tommy does a real good job of it, and as Dennis said just a few minutes ago, perhaps it's a little too timely that we're here to talk about snow removal. It seems that every time we schedule a meeting to talk about snow, it starts snowing. So can we do this next year in August? If I might be historical for just a moment. When I first came to work here, which was a long time ago, and the first time I worked snow removal was actually in 1973. The operation wasn't quite shovels standing in the back of dump trucks, but it was pretty close to it. It was a fragmented, decentralized program that was complaint-driven, that was, I don't want to say haphazard, but it really was. The equipment was not very good. The training was virtually non-existent. At that time, also, if you will recall, because Tommy and I won't ever forget, the winters of the late 70s were horrendous. The amount of snowfall and the temperatures that we're in were just terrible. And at that time, we took and said, you know, we've got to do a better job of this. We've got to come up with a way to do snow removal and do it right. We were in snow operations that were lasting days. One of them even went as far as 5 days. So at that time, it was determined that we needed to come up with a plan, get better equipment, and train our personnel. And we moved forward from that day, and there was a gentleman here who was a predecessor to me, whose name was Jim Lynch, who worked hard on the plan. And then there were several staff, several of them engineers, that helped me. And we took and computerized the county, at that time city, but now county street grid. And that enabled us to move forward. If I could get the next slide, please, Janet. Actually, we're going to show you 3 slides real slow here, and don't worry that you can't really read them, because we're going to give you this whole report on paper. But what we came up with was a series, and I know this is boring for some of you because you've seen it every year, But we came up with a series of primary, secondary, and then neighborhood routes. All of these route designations are based on two things. One, the importance of the street and the importance of it as far as moving people and moving them safely. And two, the distance that a truck fully loaded with sand and salt can travel with that one load. Taking those into mind, and there's population numbers involved in this, that's how we came up with this three-part plan. The streets themselves, this county's got topography of all different kinds. It's different. And to give you an idea, last night's storm was a real test of it. It was heaviest in the northwest section of the county and lightest in the southeast. A variable that will tell you that no two snowstorms are the same. Each and every one of them is different, and that's something that we've dealt with going through this also. If I could have the next, this is a definition. This will show you how many routes that we actually go through. We call in anywhere from 75 to 100 employees. That includes the maintenance people, includes park department people, and street department people. All of them come in, they go through these various routes. We start with the hot routes and work our way through well over 230 routes before we get through this. If we're just treating and the snow is at what we consider to be a normal snowstorm, which is somewhere between 1 to 3 or 2 to 3.5 inches, we can get through that in somewhere between 8 and 16 hours. If it goes over 4 inches and we got to start plowing, then the clock's going to run and it's going to take us a lot more time. The slide you're looking at right now will show you that on the average, Kansas City, for the past 10 years, and you can actually go back a little farther than this, averages right about 20 inches of snow. And that translates into roughly about 22 to 26 events. And what we consider an event is where he has to activate more than 10 people to go out and treat the snow. There will be nights when the crews go out and all they do is run bridge routes. We can do that with 1 or 2 trucks, sometimes 3, depending upon what's out there. But if we have to go what we consider at least 20% operational, because normal is about 55 trucks if we're running full tilt, then we consider that an event. Last year, for example, you can see it was almost 32 inches. If you go back to 9-10, you can see the numbers were pretty high. Those are real expensive years, real expensive years. Can we have the next slide, please, Tim? Here's some pictures of what we do and how we do it. The upper left picture is a salt storage dome. That material that you see in there runs $50 plus a ton, and it's the main snow fighting ingredient that we use. You can see the type of equipment to the right, or top right, is one of our dump trucks with a 10-foot blade on the front. When that truck's fully loaded, it's carrying 6.5 to 7 tons of material in the back, and with that blade on the front of it, you can tell that's a lot to drive, and we've done a lot of training to get those drivers. They work really hard to be good at it. They take a lot of pride in what they do with this. The lower left is a superintendent's truck, and we found a few years ago, as we moved on, we fine-tuned this thing as we moved to the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. Now we take the managers and we actually put a plow in the front of their trucks so they can clean up turn bays, help out with intersections, clean up complaint calls. Because as you know, you take the calls more directly sometimes than we do. When we plow driveways shut, when we block intersections, when our truck is deadheading, when it's going to its assigned route and it hasn't dropped its plow or let any material go, you'll get some of those phone calls too for the new commissioners. Lower right is one of our trucks actually at work. And if I could have the next slide, please. This will tell you, this is the detail of what we do. We have union restrictions, 16 hours on, 8 off. The main trigger, and one of the things that we've used that saved the UG a lot of money, is we have a private weather service. And the private weather service is actually how we base what we're going to do, how many people we're going to assign initially, where we're going to start first. Last night, the phone call came in to Tommy from our weather service, and they told us it was going to be heavier in the northwest, and it was going to start somewhere around 1 a.m. So he was able to move, because we're 24/7, 365, he was able to move an on-the-clock employee out there, put him in that district, and that guy was able to call him and say, hey, Tommy, this thing started. You know, we need to get moving. It's coming down pretty good. You need to move somebody out here. That type of communication, that type of data is very important. If you go back to where I was a few minutes ago when we first started, if they'd have said it was going to snow that night, they'd have kept everybody. They'd have stayed on the clock, we'd have burnt material, et cetera, et cetera. Back to that material again. Salt actually went down this year, and it's $52 a ton. Sand runs about $12 a ton, just to put that in perspective for you. We'll go through
Excuse me,
normal.
Mr. Maddox? Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay.
Proceed.
A normal winter, one of those 22 to 26 events, 20 inches of snow approximately, we'll go through somewhere between 8,000 to 10,000 tons of salt and about another 4,000 or 5,000 tons of sand. Last year, we used a lot more of that and blew through a lot of our reserves. But we do have an adequate supply on hand at the moment, and we do have salt ordered. Let's see. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, one of the things that makes this business so tricky are the variables. You can be in a snowstorm and be doing real well, you know, everything goes, and all of a sudden the wind changes and everything you did is covered back over. This particularly happens on the west end of our county, both north and south of the river. On the east end, particularly the southeast side of the county, you'll run into more instances of ice, and it seems like there's always more freezing rain down there because I think it's designed that way because there's more bridges down there. Could be anyway. The other part of the variables, as we go through it, is the type of snow. You can have a wet, heavy snow that's real hard to move, or you can have stuff like we had last night that's real light, powdery, and blows all over. It's easy to move, but it blows right back in behind you a lot of the times. The temperature also, and pardon me here, I'm fighting a terrible cold. The temperature, a lot of times, is our friend or our enemy. At 17 degrees, salt quits working. And so that's where we have to mix it. And we'll mix it with sand to keep it working longer, and then eventually around 10 degrees when everything stops, that sand's the only thing you've got that's going to give you some kind of grip to be in some sort of safe transportation mode. The last few years, we haven't had that much of a battle with ice or freezing rain, but if you go back to 2000, you'll recall we had a terrible ice storm that paralyzed the whole city and took well over a month to clear the debris out of it because of all the fallen tree limbs and damage, et cetera, that was done. Let's see here. What else do I got to say? I got it. Another variable that we go through as we fight with the ice and the freezing rain is we try to go, a few years ago, we tried to go to the liquids. And I know you hear that on the news all the time. You'll hear them talking about everything from beet juice to calcium chloride to some type of liquid salt mixture. And we tried, and we found a product called Ice Band 70 that worked really well. The only problem was every application of it was just about $4,000. And it doesn't really work well. It works well in our climate, but it's not cost effective because there's too much moisture. Is it cost effective to use some of the stuff they're using? It depends on what you do. The state, particularly KDOT, they deal mainly with elevated roadway, So the liquids work a lot better for that. Since we have both and a lot more of regular roadway than we do elevated roadway, again, it wasn't that good of a hindrance for us, and it's so expensive, we just quit using it. Basically, no, it doesn't, I'm sorry, I got one more thing here. The last slide, this is something when we did the snow thing last year, and when we went through the really big snowstorm where City Hall was actually closed, one of the things that we came up with was we found that there needed to be a better means for the citizen to communicate to us their snow problem. And so Nick, who's, I don't know, where'd he go? Oh. Anyway, he's been working with Edwin, and Edwin's helped us a whole lot. And they've come up with a email address and a street department phone number that we're going to give to everybody. As I said, we'll give you this whole packet, and you'll be able to use that number. It's going to go on the website. We hope to get it published, and we also hope to give it to some of the other media people.
Mike, will somebody answer those emails?
Yes, they will.
Yes, we did. Yes.
Commissioner Maddox, you had a question?
Yes, sir. Thanks. Mike, I had two questions. The first question is, during the time of a snowstorm, are there any correspondence on the website that people can look at to find out when their street would be plowed, or a number they can call? Because what I receive is that the phone lines are clogged, they can't get through, and that becomes an issue. Somehow they find my number becomes clogged. So I just wanted to know, was there correspondent on the website? And then my second question, for all the viewers that may be looking in UG TV land, do you have any words to where they can park if they don't have off-street parking or garages, so they don't get plowed in? Because that's also a big issue that I'm confronted with during snowstorm.
If I could start with your second question, Commissioner. We have an emergency snow ordinance, and we do put that in effect. That allows us the ability to contact police and have anything towed that's really in our way, particularly on the hot routes. We hesitate to do that, and we don't tow a lot of those cars. Hence, you see where we move around them and try that, because we know that's a terrible thing to do to people and all that, but we do plow them in when that happens. It's something that, particularly in the downtown areas of our community, we've always had a problem and always tried to deal with. If they can get it in the alley, if in their yard, we don't care where they put it. They put it in the sidewalk if they want to, just to get it out of our way. We'll help them get it out of there if we need to. The first part of your question, or your first question rather, no, we hesitate to do that, to give that information, because that takes us back to the way it used to be, and what we're trying to do, and what we've done for the past 15, 20 years, 25 maybe, is we let the routes drive the plan, and the truck has an assignment, the driver knows where he's supposed to go, and now when emergency comes up, that's a different deal, we can move them, but we try to keep them on that schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
I hope that answered. Anybody else?
Any other questions? Commissioner Townsend?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tobin. Just quickly, could you go back again for the benefit of our constituents in UGTV land and talk again about the priorities? Quickly again, what's the hot routes and why those are hot, and let people know that they're not forgotten, but what the priorities are again. And
Yes, I can. The hot routes are basically State Avenue, parallel, 78th Street, 7th Street, 10th Street, Minnesota. Any high commercial or high traffic locations, Kansas Avenue, Southwest Boulevard. There's 33 of those routes, and those are our number one priority. The trucks go there first, and that's regardless of what the event is. The hot routes go first, and the drivers know that. The secondary routes are the ones that take the people from their subdivisions and feed those arterials to get them wherever they're going, or get them to the interstates, et cetera, et cetera. There's a few more of those. There's about 39 or 40 secondary routes. And they, like I said, they're pulling the people out of the neighborhoods. The neighborhood routes themselves are the last ones we get to, and obviously there's more of those routes than anything else. They are the hardest to do. They're the biggest challenge in terms of topography, in terms of parked cars, in terms of other street projects that are going on. But we get through them. I mean, we get through them every time. And sometimes it takes longer, but we get through them. Because of the traffic that they carry. Obviously, State Avenue is going to carry a lot more cars than, say, Haskell.
Commissioner, if I might ask, Mr. Tobin, would you speak to the issue in coordination with the school districts as it relates to priorities on that chart, please?
Yes, I will. And that comes both with the primary and the secondary routes. These guys take a great deal of pride in the fact that Kansas City, Kansas schools do not close very often. District 500 does not shut down very often at all, and that's because we've worked with both them, the Turner, the Piper school districts, to figure out their main bus routes, to have those routes cleared so that they can get their kids to school.
Mayor, if I might, one final comment. And we've been in snow removal operations for years. The first question is, when are you going to get my street plowed? The second question that will occur in the follow-up call is, why did they put the snow in the end of my driveway if you're fortunate enough to have a driveway? And ladies and gentlemen, there is simply no other place to put the snow. I know many residents think that there's a way that the truck operator can raise the blade and not put it in their driveway. But I think all of us here that have driveways have had snow in our driveways, and it's inevitable. If we want the streets cleared, there will be snow in the driveways and in the older parts of town where people are parking on the street. They don't have a place to relocate their vehicle. They're plowed in and got to go dig their car out. So it's just a part of snow battle that we all face. We're very proud of our public works team and all the departments that are involved. When we go into full operations, we have to open up the fleet center, and we're in 24/7 operations there for gas, maintenance, flat tires, plow repair. So it's a massive operation, and I'm very proud of the efforts that our teams put forward. We can always continue to try and do better. Commissioner Maddox, you spoke of tracking of individual plows. Some of our suburban communities are on the news media telling us exactly where their plows are, and we could invest in tracking equipment and computerized information to keep the public informed. But the first investment we're making is in new plows and new trucks to try and get the job done. The ability to track vehicles and know exactly how we're doing is something we hope to achieve in the future as additional funding becomes available. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
If I might add one thing before closing. You mentioned, Dennis, the coordination and cooperation between various divisions, departments, and other members of the unified government. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that police and fire both work very well with us, and we try at all costs to help them out. And if they have a major emergency or safety problem during one of our storms, we will pull off those routes to go help them out, and we have in the past, and will continue to do so.
Commissioner Murguia?
I just want to say I really appreciate all the work that the street department does, and I'm always amazed when we see pictures of our equipment that you're still able to get your job done. So you do a great job, and I just really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen, that was informative.
Thank you.
You know, over in Turner, you could put us first once in a while. Just kidding, for the public that's watching. All right, I believe that's the end of the agenda. If there's no further comments by the commissioners, we are adjourned.